Did it set off a good thing? Oh, yes, well, plenty of things for you to do. Plenty of Did you adopt an apartment or something to clean it out with your transition? There you go. That's a great
Oh, yeah. Good. Yeah.
So can you guys hear us okay on the live streamy thing? I think that's your phone.
No, I don't
Yeah?
have that ring.
All right. Are we good volume-wise for the live stream? A little closer to the mic. Okay, my goal is not to microphone for you all, but for the 5 or 6 people that are joining us through the YouTube live stream. I'm waiting to hear from the guy in the back. I think in the sanctuary, everybody ought to be able to hear us okay. Now they certainly can, right? We good? Okay. Well, I want to thank you all for coming. I want to thank anybody who's joining us via the church's YouTube channel. 5 or 6 folks have said that you weren't able to be here because of health issues, and thank you for being with us this way. Hi. If you want to text questions during the meeting, if you're coming from live on YouTube, feel free to text me at 585-953-1108. And I'm going to pass things over to start to you, Brenda.
Hi,
so
everyone.
We've kind of divvied up our agenda with us tag teaming, and here's Brenda's
Because
Brad.
if I talk too long, you might get discouraged. Okay, so we all know that homelessness is really on the increase at this point. There are so few apartments available for our families to compete for. And it's really how it is. The landlords hold an open house and they have somebody come or everybody come, and then basically they look at everybody and they decide who they're going to rent to. So, there are a lot of issues with rentals right now, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But pretty much 1 in 4 working women is now living in poverty. 1 in 4. That's huge. Look around the women you know. The length of stay that people are staying in our shelter, of course, because there's no place for them to move out to, has increased considerably. And right now, in fact, we have a couple living in one place with 2 children. They've been there for 18 months. And we're just now being able to find a 2-bedroom apartment only because one of our emergency apartment landlords, is just finishing up painting another 2-bedroom unit. And so this couple and their children are going to be able to move in there. 4 months, 6 months, close to a year is not unusual now. We've only graduated 4 families this year. And last year was a low year. We graduated 12. The year before that, 16. So as the length of stay that people are forced to do at the shelters now it means that it's taking longer for them. That means that it's increasing the trauma that the family experiences. No longer can we say, well, a child really didn't know that they were in shelter. If they're there for a year, they probably know that they're in a shelter. One of the other things we have looked at in terms of the families staying in the apartments is that they're really nice and they're really comfortable. And so, even though we know that there are not a lot of housing options, we're constantly trying to nudge people to get them to go out and look for jobs, look for housing. The truth is that everyone is going to have to work. It isn't going to matter what your disability really is. If you're going to be able to afford housing, you're going to have a job that supplements your SSI or your disability benefits. Because those benefits are no longer enough to pay the lowest level of rents that are now being charged. Several months ago, I went into one of the local apartment complexes, and they did, the bait and switch. Here's an apartment. Here's the nicely remodeled one. You're going to be able to afford this. Fill out our application and pay the fee, which we did, only to then be told when we told them we had Section 8, oh, well, that apartment's not available, but we have this other apartment that is not refurbished, and it costs a little bit more money and has a little smaller space, but we think you'll be comfortable there. Again, we're told if they receive their income from a third-party source, Section 8 housing, disability benefits, a voucher, an emergency housing voucher. There are landlords that are saying we won't take you as a tenant unless your income comes just from you. If you have money coming from someone that doesn't live in that apartment, they're not going to rent to you. Well, that's illegal. That's illegal. And just so that you all know, there are a lot of illegal discriminatory practices happening right now, really focused on the group of people that we're serving. The group of people, speaking of the group of people that we're serving, that has changed somewhat too. I think when Family Promise first came about, there was this notion that there were people who didn't want to go to shelter, or there wasn't shelter available for both the women and the men to be together. And so, where was I going with this? I don't really know. The population has changed, yes, thank you. It was this thought that there were people who were just a little bit off of being able to afford their housing themselves, and that those would be our clients. And then it was suspected in the community that we were cherry-picking clients and not really meeting the people who needed it the most. And so since that time, we have been a recipient of some grant funding through the state that pays for 3 of our apartments in Geneva and the utilities on those 3 units. It also pays for a staff person to work on shelter responsibilities and flipping them and working with the people that are in the shelter. So the way I've described it is we kind of went from maybe the family who had some people working in it, but they weren't making quite enough money. Now we're really at the point, because we have to take the people who are the most in need, we have to focus, even though we have this waiting list of 150 families now at this point, we have to take the person that is in the greatest danger or need or vulnerability. So, people will call and say, I'm second on the waiting list. When am I going to get in? For crying out loud, I've been second for the last 6 months. And I have to say, I'm really sorry, but you could be second for a lot longer. Because it really doesn't mean anything now that we are taking referrals through the coordinated entry system and through DSS. I'm just trying to get people out of cars, okay? We've had many calls in the last 2 weeks of people that are living in cars, much more than last year. And so my goal is just to get the kids out of the cars. If we can get those families under a roof, that really is our priority at this point. Jay, why don't you talk about our graduating families?
All right. Give me the mic, boss.
I wasn't using it effectively.
Okay, so just an overview. I mean, everybody got a copy of the agenda? You didn't get it? Agendas. So like Brenda said, am I okay back there? Like Brenda said, we've only had 4 families graduate this year. But it's been an interesting collection of where people have gone to. There was one family who was a Spanish-speaking family living in our apartment at Saltonstall Street that the United Church is taking care of right now. And they ended up in an income-eligible apartment complex in Geneva. So they pulled that together after a lot of hard work. Another family that was living in our upstairs Mosaic apartment on North Main Street in Canandaigua was the only family that I worked with that qualified for what was called an emergency housing voucher and was able actually to land a Section 8-like apartment in Canandaigua, and they are now housed in a really nice apartment. I don't want to just go through each of the families, but 4 families have graduated. 2 more are around the corner. So Brenda mentioned somebody who is just met with one of the landlords we rent from, and they should be, as we're speaking right now, signing the paperwork to get this family moved into a standalone apartment in Geneva, which is real exciting. And another family, I'm umming a lot right now because I didn't write down the details of each of the families here. But another family moved in recently into our other apartment at the Mosaic Church on North Main Street, and looks like she is next on the list, and they're preparing an apartment for her at a local low-income complex. So those are exciting changes, which means we'll have 2 more apartments opening up, new families moving in. We have 2 new apartments that we're renting in Geneva in the last 3 months maybe, and a relationship with a landlord in those apartments that is soon to result in a house that he has purchased that will provide housing for 3 of our graduate families or 3 of our guests moving into shelter. So it'll be a permanent supportive housing sort of situation, something new for us. We were able to channel some seed money to this landlord so that he was able to renovate a building, and we'll be able to place 3 families that landlords aren't taking right now into that setting while our new case managers work with them to make sure that they continue to be successful. Got other landlord engagement initiatives on the way, but we're just sort of figuring that out right now, and I'll have more to tell you about it later. If you look around, I have not been at a coordinators meeting before, so I don't know what they've been like in the past. But you see people from maybe a dozen congregations represented here, or if we take the Clifton Springs pod, maybe that bumps it up to 16 or 18, I'm not sure. But there's been a sort of expected change in how much congregations are really embracing working with Family Promise, because the opportunities to do that are less than they were when we got started. When I came on board, we had families moving from church to church in our rotational model. It was a magnificent, fascinating way to make an impact with a group of people for an intensive week at a time. You work with a family, you get to know the parents, you help with the kids, you feed them, you shelter them, and you've made a tremendous difference. It's a beautiful thing. And we had to shut that down. because of COVID. And so we did. We shut it down. And suddenly, from the perspective of congregations and people in congregations being involved in Family Promise, we went from this really exciting thing that you could do and make a big difference to, well, I can go shopping for them. I can take their shopping list and go out and go to Wegmans or Walmart or Tops or Aldi and pick up food for them. And that was great, but not the same. To, really, people want to do their own shopping. People want to take care of themselves. People want to care for the kids, feed their kids in the way that they're accustomed to doing it. So please, churches, would you help us out with some gift cards so that, we can feed our families? And every one of those steps has truly made life easier and better and less traumatic for families and their kids. It really has. But it's made it less meaningful to be a volunteer working with Family Promise, I think. Is what I'm saying, does it make sense? Does that resonate, or are you like, what is he talking about right now? So, my hope tonight, after we get done with this relentless introduction, is to share is to share some of our ideas about how we can make it more meaningful and worthwhile for congregations, for volunteers outside of congregations and inside, to feel like they can really have a meaningful impact that's going to make a difference. And not just because we want to have volunteers for the sake of having volunteers, but because there's stuff we can't do. And we're growing, we're getting bigger, we've got 7 places in shelter right now. We're going to have this permanent supportive housing thing with another 3 families that we have to provide much more detailed case management. We've got like dozens of volunteer families that we're working with now. 3 years ago when I started, there were maybe 10, and a lot of them have great needs. So we need help in order to be effective. So that's what I'm sort of hoping to do. One thing is that when I came in and I saw how things were working, it was cool. There were 14 churches and 1 synagogue that provided a place for families to live, and there were another 30 that helped out by, providing volunteers and food and stuff like that. So we called the congregations host congregations and support congregations. That doesn't really make sense anymore. At this point, every congregation or other group that helps us and helps our families out, it's kind of equal. They're all the same. It doesn't make sense to say I'm a host church, I'm a support church, I'm a friend. So we're hoping to find a way to make everybody participate equally. And that doesn't mean how much money you contribute. It doesn't mean how many gift cards you deliver. It just means each congregation or group having a time when they're the ones who step up, maybe just a couple times a year at this point. So anyhow, one of the things that makes the need greater at this point is that mostly in the past, when we were working with families, we were busting our tails to support the 4 families maximum that were in our shelter program. But at this point, we're spending as much of our time trying to keep graduate families that have struggled through the pandemic and have had setbacks during the pandemic stabilized. So that's a big part of where we're looking for support too. So that's kind of where we've gotten to, and we're going to move into plans for moving forward. But before we do, are there questions that come up from what Brenda and I have said that you'd like to put out there right now? And again, if you're out there in the...
Can I explain what permanent supportive housing is?
I think you should.
Okay.
Actually, before you do, may I take
Yes.
Christy? Was it Christy? Did you have your hand up?
I'm just curious, you said, and I believe that, no longer host congregations and support congregations. But I am curious, what is the total number that we have of combined congregations?
That's a great question, and the answer is I'm not entirely sure. Come in if you're
About
wanting to come in.
23 at this point.
So I had 24 churches, coordinators that responded when I first took this job, saying, yes, we're still on board with working with Family Promise. 14 that I reached out to that have not responded yet. And it may be because the coordinator's email and phone number has changed. It may be because they're ghosting us and they don't want to be part of it anymore. I don't know the answer to that. It may be that they're part of a pod in Clifton Springs and they assume that somebody else answered on their behalf. And there have been 6 congregations that over the last couple of years have withdrawn. So a core of 24 congregations that said, yes, we're with you, and about a dozen that have said, yes, I want to come to this meeting. Let Brenda talk about permanent supportive housing.
Just real quick.
Briefly, Brenda.
Yeah. So permanent supportive housing is new for us, but it's not new for other agencies. The county has a program for permanent supportive housing. FLACRA has a program for permanent supportive housing. Do you have permanent supportive housing? You don't, so that's just FLACRA. Okay.
Happiness House,
Okay.
a number of agencies have it.
Okay. So the whole idea with permanent supportive housing is we got a grant to give $12,000 to a landlord that has made the Elm Street apartments available for our shelter guests. He wanted to buy a house, but he wanted the people that moved in there to be people that were still connected to Family Promise in some way. So what he's agreed to do is refurbish a 3-bedroom apartment and 2 2-bedroom apartments. The tenants will go in there and execute a lease with him directly as the landlord. So we are not the person that is signing the bottom line for, anybody's rent. However, we continue to do case management with those families. So if at some point there is a problem with the rent, we will help with that. And we will still be doing case management, as I said, with these people, but those will not be Family Promise apartments. And he's agreed to rent to them at fair market rent, which is what their subsidy will pay. And he's agreed to keep it at those prices for 2 years for us, and then we'll have to renegotiate after that.
And I just talked to him, and he expects to have 2 of the apartments ready by the 1st of December, and the 3-bedroom one available by the 1st of January. So that's exciting, because we've got people that have been spinning their wheels for a long time. They cannot find a place. We work really hard. We fill out applications. We go everywhere. We write letters on their behalf. We help them write letters on their behalf. We give them classes. And they still get told no, 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 no. So having these places is going to be really, really helpful. Right. Somebody had a question.
Kay, did you have a
Did you have a question?
Well, you were talking about some of the people about the church and stuff. I wonder how much of it, do we know how much of it has to do with that it's no longer a faith-based organization?
Well, we were never a faith-based organization.
Pardon me?
We were never a faith-based organization.
That's what it said in the Family Promise.
Faith-based actually means something else. Faith-based is a religious organization that does nonprofit work. So that would be like Lutheran Social Services or Catholic Charities.
From the very beginning.
We weren't a faith-based organization. We were an organization that worked with community congregations to provide housing.
But Kay, I
We
hear
were
what...
not a faith-based organization. We weren't Catholic or
Description of what we, of who we were. Yeah.
someone, yeah.
That's what you're getting, so I know that.
Yeah, as a grant writer, I know there's a real distinction with that, and so whoever wrote that wasn't clear. A faith-based organization is like a Lutheran Social Services, a Catholic Charities. They're a religion that creates social service programs.
If I can, maybe I can clarify. I think at the beginning, we were really finding our way, and we knew that the model really utilized congregations of any faith, but at the same time, we also had the Rotary, and, other entities we were open to their being a part of our group. So I think we talked about being people of faith who were doing this, but like Brenda says, to be recall that faith-based organization has a very distinctive
Definition.
However, I guess
Yeah.
I
Is there a-
recognize that, but
Yeah.
from the very beginning, even on the national description of family promise, it used the word faith.
Okay.
And it used the word faith for our local group as well.
Okay.
I mean, I may be using it incorrectly in terms of faith, but faith was incorporated into the description of who we were. And so that has had a huge impact on many of us who have joined it in the beginning because of that.
But
Well, thanks, man. Thanks, appreciate it.
But it could be limiting. You know, it could be limiting because we would have to designate, well, who are the faith? The Christians, the Jewish, the Muslims, like we,
Kay, what is your question? I mean, is there a question, is there a concern about
Right,
this?
because I recognize that it was faith of all faiths across the board, Jewish, Christian, whatever, but faith was used in the description of who we were as a group. And so many of us, myself included, were joined in because of it. So now it's missing out of the definition. Not just asking.
we're using the
how it went in
same,
there.
yeah, we're using the same, mission statement that National is using now. National has made a shift, and they're really trying to make us more nonprofit organizations as opposed to mom and pop shops. And there's always been, you know, that tussle, because the congregations are the secret sauce, you know, that made Family Promise what they were, but we weren't faith-based.
I think, you know, kind of what Brenda said, we.
Closer, Eileen.
Oh, okay. We partnered with Family Promise National originally because we really liked the model, we really liked, Kay, all the thing you're talking about. They have made a shift. And in order to maintain our attachment to them, we have to use their logos, we have to use their mission statement. But for me, as an individual, I still do this because of my faith. I still do this because God calls us to care for the poor. You know, I don't know if that kind of addresses that.
I guess it would be nice to know that.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, we are a pretty tight group, and we have all kinds of denominations in our group, and we have a lot of discussions about how we're doing, and none of us realize that the word faith was taken out of what it is Family Promise. I know that didn't change the mission. of
Yeah.
Family Promise, but it made a difference to us, so it would be nice to know that,
Okay,
you know, that happened.
I think what,
okay.
To us, and I'm wondering.
May I answer her
yeah.
question?
I don't know if that had an impact on congregation staying.
but I need you to be careful.
Okay, point taken. Thanks.
Kay, I'd like to try to answer your question, though. We don't know for sure, but I think from conversations that I've had with all the people that have been in the role that I'm stepping into and with people in congregations, that the primary reason folks have stepped away is because we've moved away from the rotation model. And because of that, there's not the opportunity to have to make a meaningful difference
The hands-on,
to a specific
yeah.
family in a specific place where you are making that personal contact. That's what I believe in my heart is the main reason that folks have pulled away. But also a couple small congregations that they've lost a lot of people and they just didn't feel like they could continue to support us. Yes?
I think another reason that, at least for.
Can you take that
Yeah.
mic back? Well, while she's taking the mic back, Claude, there's not a digital agenda, sorry, but we're halfway through our agenda, and the rest of the agenda, after this lively conversation, will be focused on our plans moving forward.
I think one of the reasons our congregation is not as excited anymore is the lack of, we can do gift cards, but it would be nice to have information. There is a mother with 2 children. There is a family that has so many teenagers, so that we are a part of it, not just giving gift cards, because that is something we have lacked since,
So this is part of the reason for the meeting tonight. You know, and even the gift cards, we relied on the gift cards. This year, we were lucky to get an emergency food and shelter grant through the United Way, and now that's going to allow us to go and buy a large number of gift cards, like maybe $5,000 or $10,000 worth of gift cards with that money. So, you know, the gift cards, like you say, it was a way to keep people engaged. It was a way to have people still be helping when they couldn't get out of their house with COVID and go someplace else.
Well, I know it was a way to keep people fed.
Well, and a way to keep people fed also. But I think that the opportunities we're rolling out now are one-on-one or one with another small group. Because we recognize as well that our families need guidance, they need support, they need somebody in their corner. There's a lot of folks that we serve who have no one, and I mean no one healthy in their life. And so we really need to rely on volunteers for that kind of thing. Yeah.
I think what I heard her say though was, just the lack of information about, the support that has been shared with the
Right.
congregation.
So that was also a problem last year, is there was conversation about confidentiality and what could be, typically a family would go through. And then a few weeks later, somebody would call and say, well, gee, how are Jen and Mike doing?
But you don't need names.
But you can't tell them that, because you're going to call asking about a specific family, and it would be up to that family whether they wanted to share that information with you because of confidentiality. So we're kind of toning it up so that we meet all of the, typical methods that people do counseling with families and help families. And I don't want to minimize the religious component. I know that Donna walked in my office the other day and she goes, I'm hearing a lot about budget, I'm hearing nothing about God. And I said, well, then walk right out, because you're not going to hear anything about God when I'm in here talking about a budget. But her question was, what is the role now of the congregation? And the role of the congregations now as individual volunteers or as groups, there are many activities that he is putting on a handout for you tonight to take back to your groups. But you have to, I know I'm a pastor's wife, so I get it, okay. But there's a time when I have to say, I'm doing this because it's helping me strengthen my faith, because I'm helping somebody else, and that, that agrees with my theology. But to say we are a religious organization, we're not. But I can still do it for all the right reasons, but I don't need to share it with a client. I don't need to, it doesn't have to, be, we don't want the feeling, and this is what National was saying when they were changing the model. We all get really excited when people come and spend a week with us. That's marvelous. We get to talk to them, we make a connection, maybe we're giving them, some advice and that kind of thing. But for that person and their children, they meet you one week and you're all excited, and then they don't hear from you, and then they go someplace else for another week, and then they go to another group after that. And after a while, it's kind of like going to the zoo and feeling like people are kind of watching you. It's not the best trauma-informed care that can be provided for those adults and children. And so having them in an apartment where they can do baths the same way they do, read a story, put them to bed the same time, eat the foods they're used to, cooked at the time they're used to eating. Those kinds of things we think, how important is that? It's really important when you've lost everything you have and you're standing in a strange place with maybe a couple bags of your stuff. You're trying to hang on to any little thing you can. I mean, I saw a mom just lose her mind because
the little dog had run away, you know, and she was like, I can't lose one more thing. And I said, yeah, I get it. And if I could have bought her a dog and they would have allowed it in the apartment, I would have. But anyway, you know, I mean, we have to think of it from not what we want to get out of it. We have to think of it from what do they feel about everybody. You know, kind of looking in, giving advice, poking, asking the same questions. You know, how tired are you when you come home from work at night? You're tired. You want to sit down, you want to eat, you want to talk to your family, you want to relax. And so it wasn't the best environment, really, for you to interact. I would rather you come to the day center, you work with them one-on-one, filling out some job applications, putting a resume together. That's more valuable to that individual than if they had come to your church and spent the night. They need your time, they need your skill, they need your expertise, because they have none of those. And so we have to remember why we're here. Yeah.
You have to take the mic.
About groceries and things. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I know that they have offered food to Family Promise. We have a storehouse in Palmyra,
Oh, okay.
and they didn't want to have it, like they would have come and delivered. And I think it was $1,000 a year that they were willing to
Wow.
give. And Family Promise didn't want it. And then because they didn't have a place to store anything. So then they thought about it, and they said, well, we could do it in smaller increments, or they could come over and get what they want. I mean, we have
And a
like
lot
a
of peop-
grocery store.
Yeah, and a lot of people were not even buying groceries for. What was happening is when they were coming and they had food stamps, we would say, save your food stamps. You're going to be moving into an apartment. You need all new groceries. Well, what they were doing is hoarding. They were spending all their food stamps, and then they were eating all the food that we gave them as well. These are homeless people. These are people who don't have much to their name. They're going to grab onto anything you give them, and they're going to hang on to it. And so people were just, the eating was out of control. People were ordering steak,
It's true.
you know, from a volunteer to go shop for them. So, yeah, we cut that out. And we said, if you have food stamps, you use your food stamps. If you're out of food stamps at the end of the month, we certainly can get you groceries. And we would get them something if they didn't have it. But we're trying to do the healthy thing for them.
I want to own up to that, though. I was the case manager who spoke with him about that, and it would have been a beautiful thing, but it was just too much to manage on our end, to be perfectly honest. I was already going to 3 different food link distribution sites and picking up food to take to guests and graduates, and I just couldn't manage it then and there. I still think that would be a wonderful thing to try to work out. It was more a function of my not having the time and bandwidth to make that happen. So I don't want to disrespect a beautiful offer.
What about the clothing places that have, like in Wellspring and Clifton, they have a place where people can come and get things? I think they even have furniture.
Yeah,
Yep.
the Victor Church here,
Right,
the Methodist
yep.
Church, Victor
Okay.
does some bread distribution, and Victor has the clothing,
Yeah.
or the Methodists have the clothing closet.
But I was coming up to the church every food distribution to pick up stuff and take out to our graduates when I was able to do that.
But there again, you know, being mindful that they need to choose what's in season, what fits, and not go crazy. I walked into an apartment and seen just trash bags full of clothing. I'm like, what are all these trash bags? Well, they had been to a bunch of different places and picked up free clothing and hadn't had a chance to go through it, and I thought, yikes. So, you know, we're trying to educate as we go.
I'm stopping by the community clothing closet after this meeting to pick up stuff for one of our guest families. So we do take advantage of those. opportunities as much as we can. I'd like to propose that we move on, because
Sure.
we got a
Yeah,
lot of
okay,
ground to
go.
cover. I just want to say thank you to Ann for listening in. I'm sorry you got to log off in 11 minutes, and I appreciate you staying in touch with. I will get all the documents to you by email. And Claude, thank you for reminding us that there is a pastor on our board, and we're keeping it faithful. We're just not a faith-based organization anymore.
That's right.
So there are three things that you should cover really quickly. One is how we've changed staffing moving forward. One is our plans really quickly for the day center, and the other is other options for emergency shelter. And we'll talk about what we need from you all.
Okay. When we started talking about having all of these apartments, obviously it meant that we needed more staff because they're geographically separated and the families require a lot of transporting to take them to their various appointments. So we got busy writing grants, and because we knew that special events weren't going to be a go for a while. So we started writing grants, and we were actually really successful. The Greater Rochester Health Foundation is funding our 3 apartments in Canandaigua they've already funded them for a year, and it'll be for another 2. So they pay rent and utilities, and they also pay for a staff, well, no utilities on that one, but they pay for a staff person, full-time, that is bilingual, that can work with our non-English speaking families, and that's been really helpful. We also applied for, I have this list of 150 names at the end of the year. What do you do with the 150 people that you didn't help? So we applied for some more funding. We got a grant from Excellus Blue Cross Blue Shield. We got money from the National Family Promise. And we have been able to, we were able to actually design a new staffing plan that we think is going to work. So the prevention worker, right now, she is our Finger Lakes Community College student who is getting a degree in human services. She graduates in December. So right now she's working half-time. She's doing 8 hours internship, 16 hours a week for us. And then in December, when she graduates, she'll come on full-time as a prevention case manager. So she's been going down through that list of 150 names and calling people and finding out, do you still need housing? Are you still in the hotel? Where are you? What can we do for you? Do you need food? Do you need a first month's rent or security deposit? So we're trying to serve preventively 150 families to keep them from slipping into homelessness. So that's really helping. And then we have the 2 caseworkers, one here in Canandaigua and one in Geneva. So that makes our 3. Jay has moved over. We got a grant also from National for landlord engagement. And the whole idea is to make friends with lots of new landlords that will then allow our people to come in, and they will keep the rent at a price that the subsidies will provide.
That's our hope. We love your help in finding those people.
So Jay is doing that part-time. He's training our caseworkers another section of his time, and then he is now in charge of volunteers and volunteer activities. I think that's everybody.
Thanks.
We still need that bilingual person, and we need a half-time driver. So if you know of anyone that wants a job
And we're interviewing somebody on Thursday.
for the bilingual
Yes, which is
caseworker
exciting.
position, but I don't have anybody for drivers. Nobody,
Yes,
we
we do.
do.
Yep.
If somebody drives them around, do they use your vehicle, or are they supposed to use their own, or?
That'll be up to the people who are offering driving help.
I
So,
think that we probably will have them drive the van for insurance.
oh, you mean the driver?
Right, the insurance
I'm going to
purposes.
pitch volunteer drivers here too, so in that case, it'll be up to what you all come up with.
But
Okay.
we really need a driver.
You all ready for the sales pitch? All right, do it. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to offer you 5 distinct and interesting volunteer opportunities at Family Promise of Ontario County. Our hope is that we can create a bunch of teams drawing primarily from the congregational resources we have here and those not currently present and those present digitally to accomplish a whole bunch of things. Could I first have the members of the United Church of Canandaigua stand up?
They'll wave.
No, come on.
They're fine.
These guys are our role models for one of the 5 teams we're looking at. It's actually for 7 of the 5 teams we're working on, and that's hard to explain, but it's true. So it's that decision about whether to pass out the handout before you talk, and then people read it and they don't pay attention to you. So I'm going to summarize really quickly. So one thing that we're trying to do is create a series of hospitality teams. When people were in the churches and in the synagogue, they were experiencing radical hospitality from your people. We want to be able to offer radical hospitality, but in a setting where folks are not staying in a different place every week. So our hope is we can come up with teams that accomplish 3 things. Y'all are accomplishing one of those 3 things right now. So we're going to pitch it bigger. So the first thing is simply preparing apartments for the next family of guests that come in. It takes us it takes a really long time for us with our small cadre of volunteers. There's our small cadre of volunteer over there and back there. And it takes a really long time to get the apartments ready. I mean, it will take a month getting it changed over, longer, because there are little repairs that need to be made, there's deep cleaning that needs to be done, there's getting food stocked, there's getting linens made.
But you get 1
that
week to
stuff.
do it, not a month.
So instead, we have piloted with the United Church folks a team that's managing apartment transitions. And so when somebody leaves our salt and stall apartment, they descend, they clean everything, they pull things out that need to be washed, they take them to get them washed, they come to the day center to do it, or they do it there. And then maybe some other people, maybe the same people come in and they reset the apartment, and poof, we're ready for another family without taking forever to do it. So that's one piece of this team job. What we want to add to that is something to make it more meaningful to you as people of faith, largely, although maybe there are some people not of faith out there, and we want it to be meaningful for you too. And that is to have a way to actually offer some hospitality to these folks besides being the cleaning crew. So we're hoping that those folks can, in addition to setting it and getting it ready, leave a welcome basket. Have a way of contacting them to leave lists of activities, invite them to a supper at your congregation or another one, let them know about the cool activity that's happening at the park, stuff like that. Leave flowers. And occasionally be somebody that they can call on through the case manager, not directly to you, if they need some sort of non-case management thing, some practical organizational thing, a ride or a skillet, or figuring out what to do about the bat that's in the building, or whatever. So we'd like to have folks be kind of ongoing providers of hospitality to the people in the apartment that they have adopted. I'm hoping you all will step up a little further with that. With the Salt and Stall apartment, I'm hoping we have a new apartment coming on board in Bloomfield. I don't know if we've told you that yet. The East Bloomfield United Methodist Church parsonage is currently available, and they have agreed to rent it to Family Promise to be our 7th emergency shelter. So I'm kind of hoping folks in Bloomfield will take on that apartment. But that leaves 5 other apartments, 2 more in Canandaigua, 3 more in Geneva. And I hope that perhaps your churches might be willing to step up and become part of a hospitality team. It could be a couple churches working together. It could be one church. It could be just a group of interested individuals that have nothing to do with the church. So that's one of our possibilities. Another thing that we're looking for help with is a team of people that come together to form a way of creating a cadre of mother's helpers. People that can come in to the apartment while the mom is present and help with things that they have not learned to do because they have not grown up in a family where they've learned to do them because they're overwhelmed by their 6 children, whatever the reasons are. It could be as simple as helping clean, or teaching to clean, helping cook, teaching some new meals to prepare, taking shopping, coaching about what to purchase, or just watching the kids in the living room while the mom is attending a virtual meeting with one of her 17 therapists and caseworkers and doctors and lawyers and all the people, children's services and all the people they need to work with. I mean, it's a huge issue. And if there's somebody who can watch the kids, that would be amazing. I don't want you watching the kids by yourself in their bedroom, you want to be out in the living room, but we're hoping that that can happen. Your church has safe church policies regarding how many people can be somewhere. You might make it a pair of people to go and do that. We'll work that out. Another thing we're hoping to do is come with I'll give you a handout. You don't have to write all this stuff down if you don't want to. Is to come up with a cadre of drivers who are willing to give people rides to appointments, to shop, to whatever. Now, mothers helpers, drivers, in an ideal world, they'd come out of the hospitality team that has adopted that apartment. But there might not be, you might not want to adopt an apartment, but you might want to be able to help occasionally with that sort of thing. So we'll find a way to make that work. So those are, pardon me. Oh, that hurt, I apologize out there. There are also a couple of teams that we want to help make a difference. If you're shaking your head no, what does that mean, Lee?
No,
Come on.
you're just wondering if you were in light. You're like, no, you need to talk to the mic, we're good.
I tried not to. You winced even though it didn't hurt. All right. Let's see, where was I? 2 other teams that we'd like to pull together that are not working in our emergency apartments. We would love to have a team, one congregation, a group, whatever, who would be willing to adopt our day center to make it a more useful place for a group of people, for families to come and work. So, it was you, boss. Yeah, that's good. I'm getting points that will be cashed in later. So, we want our day center to be back to doing what it was meant to do. I mean, St. John's Episcopal Church has made this magnificent donation to us of office space there. It's incredible. And for a long time, that was a place where families came and worked together. And it hasn't been able to be like that, but we'd like to make it more of a meeting place. So to turn it into a truly usable space where one or more families can come, meet with their caseworker, have a group meeting, attend a virtual medical appointment, whatever they need to do, while there's somebody there who can keep an eye on their kids and provide positive supervision to the kids. So we're transforming the old dining room of the day center into a nursery. It's on the way. It's pretty cute. It's been for this pet project, I think. The living room into a living room. And the old case management office that then turned into a place where kids nap, turned into a place where people, into a case management office again. So and the kitchen, and the donations that come in, and the piles of linens, it's a lot to manage. So we'd love a team that was willing to take on being the day center projects team. Leah's kind of been doing that individually lately. It's been very wonderful, but she'd like some help. And then finally, on that same note, and maybe I already referred to it, we'd like to find a way of having people staff the day center for maybe a 4-hour shift at a time, so 10 shifts over the course of a week. And at that time, provide childcare in the nursery when there are people who need it, and help out in other ways when there's not somebody in the place that needs it. So those are the... Have I covered the bases?
Stand down, man, because
All right.
I'm really gonna.
Oh, sorry. Brenda,
We're gonna have a calendar.
She's been planning without me.
So every month you get a calendar, and it might be that Family 1 comes to the day center on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and Family 2 comes on Mondays and Wednesdays at specific times. Everybody will be scheduled into that calendar, but then in addition to that, we have the Keys to Good Tenancy program. We have the New Beginnings. We've got the debt eliminator program to get people better credit scores. So there will be all kinds of those activities also on this calendar. And so you may decide, hey, I want to come in and volunteer this Tuesday at the desk, but then I want to come and watch some kids on Friday in the afternoon. You can choose which times you want. You can choose how often you want to come, but expect that you will get a calendar that has a number of activities on it that you can pick and choose from. Yeah.
Is there ever a chance that the Geneva families would be able to use the synagogue the same way in the
Yes. So we've made an arrangement with Temple Bethel. We have desks moved in down into the lower level, the area that we were previously using as a day center. That will be a day center again. There will be a space for children to play, and then areas for adults to meet with caseworkers.
And hopefully laundry facilities too.
I mean, maybe we get HEAP to come over and sign up a bunch of our clients, or maybe we get, somebody to come in and explain, how to apply for benefits or services or Section 8. But we want to bring in guests continuously so that we're always introducing our guests to new people, because what we're finding is if they get in there and they've burned through their whole list of goals and everything was achieved except a job and a new apartment, then they just might not be as active looking for something. And so if they've been here this amount of time and they come in and they sit down and meet with you to talk about their progress, you can maybe give them some new ideas or new suggestions or new websites to check for apartments. But the whole idea is to reconnect the volunteer with the families that we serve in a way that's really meaningful for both of you.
So what I just passed out was a very slightly altered version of the United Church of Canandaigua's apartment turnover process for what they do when taking care of our salt and stall apartment. And they did this, about a month ago, maybe? 2 months ago. Time flies. And that will be happening again soon, I'm sure. So, on my paper here on my clipboard, I have a sign-up sheet. If you didn't sign in, if you could do that, that would be awesome. And then behind that, I have a piece of paper that says, God, this feels like church. They passing around the do this please list. You know what it's like. So if you're intrigued or inclined and you'd like to take responsibility for trying to convince the group that you're a part of, whether that is a board of directors or a synagogue or a pod or whatever your group is, staff group, whatever, there's a place to sign up for being a hospitality team leader in any of our 6 unclaimed apartments, although Donna would be really upset if it got to her and somebody had signed up for Bloomfield, possibly. If you're interested in being a mother's helper or being part of trying to convince your congregation to take that role on, or a driver team, or the day center project team, or the day center supervision team. And these things aren't all, they're not all mutually exclusive. More than one person can do these things. But I'm going to give you the opportunity. This is really interesting because this is where people avert their eyes. But I'm going to pass this around, and if you have any interest, write it down. And if you just want to leave me a note, you can write the note on there. And thanks. Appreciate that. You can talk among yourselves for a minute. I'll check to see what other texts have come in. Anne LaRue says she will bring these volunteer opportunities to her next Rotary meeting.
It's something. No,
good sign.
Oh, it's a very good time, so he can sort through his texts. For anybody who doesn't know me, I'm Eileen Tiberio. I'm the current president of the Family Promise Board.
I revere her.
Oh, geez. Yeah. He reveres me from afar, apparently. I just want to thank everybody for coming tonight because you guys serve an incredible role within the Family Promise family, and we could not do what we do without you. I just wanted, all the things that Brenda and Jay have been talking about tonight, remember, when fully staffed, there's four of them. When they're fully staffed. They got a lot on their plate. So all the more reason that we really need to step up and be of assistance to them in accomplishing the mission, right? Just something else I wanted to say, going back to something Brenda said earlier about landlords doing things that are illegal. I just got a notice this morning that Law New York, which is the legal assistance agency that covers our region, got a grant and expects to have positions for 40 new attorneys based on the amount of work. Obviously, they aren't going to be here in Ontario County, but we will get a chunk of those. And that's just, it's a reflection of the need because there is so much challenge in the housing field right now in terms of people being able to find and sustain affordable housing. I'm not an anti-landlord kind of person because I know a lot of landlords went through some really awful times during COVID. I also know that a lot of low-income people have a horrible time finding a decent place to live. And decent meaning no lead paint, no vermin, all that kind of stuff. So you are critical to us in terms of the role you play. The other thing I would want, the other volunteer opportunity, we would love to have some of you be on our board. Help us have these conversations about the future. We need people on the board to help make those governance kinds of decisions. We need people kind of boots on the ground when it comes to fund development, right, Rich? He's been very helpful, he and his team, for us. But it's an ongoing challenge because we are not funded primarily by government grants. COVID presented all kinds of nice opportunities for us, but if you remember, pre-COVID, it was all us. So we can use help for all kinds of things. I know one of the things Brenda and I had talked about is having a team that might do an event for our donors, the people who provide the revenue for us to do what we do. That would be a great thing to be able to do. We also need people who can do social media. So if you know anybody, obviously I'm not thinking that the dozen or so of us here are going to pick up all these things, but pass the word. We need help because there's just not enough of us doing the stuff. So if you would like to be on the board of Family Promise, you can talk to Dave, you can talk to Joel, you can talk to me, you can talk to Claude, who's on the web, right? Oh, and Teresa's out there. Hey, guys. Talk to any one of us. We'd be happy to talk to any of you about what's involved in being on the board. And we would love to have you join us because what we're doing is critical. In my organization, we are seeing more homeless individuals and families than we've seen before. In any given night in Ontario County, my organization houses 130 homeless individuals, including about 20 families. And that's in addition to what Family Promise is doing. So, it is becoming harder and harder for us. So as a group, I just want to encourage us to really be thinking about how we might become a voice for people who don't have a voice. It's this nuts and bolts kind of stuff, but it's also, you ever considered calling your town supervisor and saying, I think we need to develop more low-income housing here. Right? Stuff like that, that makes new stuff happen. So that's my spiel. Thanks for coming tonight.
Any other questions or thoughts?
So really everything was quarter, right? Yes. And it's October, so I'm wondering if you can give us a glimpse of what we're doing for Christmas for this year.
Pick me, Teach.
It sounds like we have a lot more families this year than we did last year.
We-
And it was, there was, you know.
Last year, last year, we served 18 families and 53 children in the Christmas Angel program, or whatever we called it. I expect there will be more this time. The process has been, as long as I've been here, to reach out to our guests and graduates and say, hey, would you like help with this? And we'll put a program together. And then whoever responds in the affirmative, we send them an email with a list of, for each of their minor children, 6 or 7 articles of needs, clothing and outerwear and boots, and one fun thing. And we sign them all up, and then as soon as we've got that, we send it out to congregations saying, can you help? We have a brand new volunteer who just stepped in to work with us. Her name is Kelly. I don't know if you're out there, Kelly. And she's offered to coordinate that program for us this year. But we'll send information out. It'll be on signup.com like it was before. Yes, but we'll definitely need helpers, but more we'll need people to reach out to your congregations and try to get their support for it. I believe so. Again, I'm just kind of getting my feet underneath me right now, which is the same thing you heard from Dave a year ago, I know. But my expectation is we'll do it pretty much the same way. I wanted to say I've got 2 takeaways right now, and I'd like to get other things from you. So this is my time to take direction from you. One is that I need to find a more effective communication strategy. So we're like, we really want to do it well. We want to make it attractive. We want it to fit the Family Promise guidelines. And consequently, communications to people, they slip sometimes because it takes too long and it's too much work. So I'm thinking I need to find a more efficient communication strategy so that I can be in touch with you about what's going on at Family Promise, big picture stuff, and also just what's happening with our families without giving away too much personal identifying information.
Anonymize it somehow.
Yeah.
And we're going to start up the emails to the pastors again, giving them 3 or 4 people they could pray for, with their congregation next week.
The other thing, and this was a request from Pam Dorado, who was not able to be here, and I don't know if you're still with us, Pam, and that's to get more information about volunteer training opportunities out as soon as we can. Family Promise National has 3 really good training modules that you can do online. 2 are specifically about volunteer training, and the 3rd is their DEIA, diversity, equity, inclusion, and access program, which everybody should be taking a part of too. So if you haven't seen those things, I will get the information out to you as quickly as I can now that I'm in the seat here. Are there other things I should put on my action list? Dawn, I don't want you to give me action lists. Oh, Donna, thanks. And you've got a really nice jacket. Any other things I should put on my list? This is my list. This is what I live by right here. So if you want me to do it, now's the time to tell me. This is a rare opportunity.
How about if we had other, no.
Waited too long.
If people think of something later, call us.
Yeah.
Let them know. This is not the end of the conversation about this.
My current phone number is on the model of the United Church's apartment turnover sheet, so you can find it up at the top. The only thing I changed was instead of Dave Simmons at his number, I put J. Garrett Larson at mine. So. Oh, I still have Dave there. Sorry. I did that this afternoon. I'm sorry. You can, call Dave. You know what Dave did? You know why he's not with us? He retired at 56 years old to be a full-time grandpa. I hate that man. Oh, I love Dave. Dave is a wonderful man. I love him. It was a treasured opportunity. Yes?
Are you still making the calls to the coordinators the week before the meeting?
That's a super good question. So I have not done that, and I've been waiting for this evening, and then we didn't really talk about it. So I haven't done that. 3 churches have reached out saying, we're on the list, and somebody, I don't remember who it was, and I have not properly thanked them, brought a huge batch of gift cards to help out guests and graduates. Is the person who I talked to here? You spoke with me about, I went into detail about how many graduate families we're taking care of and how many guests we're taking care of and how many kids they have. And it was an incredibly generous outpouring. And 3 or 4 congregations have since brought gift cards to us to help with that. I was uncomfortable with this for 2 reasons. One is that there's this big disparity, and it's okay. I mean, people can give as they can give. The other is that it felt like our host congregations were being hit up for money all the time, and the support congregations not so much. And it felt like it needed to be a more equitable, even thing. So instead of our host congregations getting hit up 4 times a year, like you did when you were providing shelter to people, it made more sense to treat every congregation and group equally that way, and I didn't know how to do that. So any quick feedback about that?
Well, our situation, Presbyterian Church in Geneva, we were a host congregation. Our support congregations are APPs.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 different transitions with the coordinator at Our Lady of Peace. We lost 2
Right,
coordinators.
right.
So that slot right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have anyone to communicate with to get the word out when we do our host,
Right.
quote unquote hosting.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why that's that way for in our situation.
So we put out, Eileen did a letter to all the clergy, and that went out last week. And so, that will help somewhat. But the congregations that are not participating, you should let Jay know so he can call them. Okay.
The other part of that is I'll get to you next, Dan. We suddenly have the opportunity for a wealth of gift cards for food. And the primary thing people were contributing were gift cards for food, which is really important. I don't use those. I'm saying I'm still the case manager. But don't use them in the first 2 or 3 weeks of the month, but in the last couple of weeks of the month and the first week of the next month, when people have used up their SNAP benefits or are getting short, that's still incredibly helpful. But it sounds like we're going to be able to cover that in other ways.
Were never designed to last a month.
Right. But
They were only ever a supplement.
But because of the number of graduates we're taking care of and the number of guests we have in shelter now, gas cards would be tremendously helpful to us, and other sort of stuff, like actual physical items to manage all of the shelter we're doing. Twin-size sheet sets, new twin-size sheet sets, towels, kitchen dish towels, and toilet paper and paper towels, and all of those sorts of staples, that would be tremendously helpful. So my hope would be that I can get back to doing what Dave and Lauren before him did in reaching out to people, but that the focus could be less on, can you get us Walmart cards or Tops cards or Wegmans cards, and more on other kinds of things that guests in shelter need, and that I wouldn't be calling on you 4 times a year. I'd be calling on you twice a year.
If you have people that still want to do gift cards, see if you can encourage them to buy Walmart because we can get cleaning products for an apartment that way. If it needs a new toilet seat, we can pick it up at Walmart. So that is really useful for us in getting just what they need for the apartment.
I recognize that symbol back there. Anybody else? Yes, Ann?
In your crystal ball, because it's getting close to the end of the year, are you going to look and see how you're doing hosting and how the weeks, because right now we're working on the one that you started, sent off before January of 2022.
I think the plan is to start the new year with a whole different calendar.
In your spare time?
Yeah, but it's a priority, though. That is a priority, and I really, I mean, the main thing is I want to be able to be in communication with you and your colleagues and other churches and synagogues and groups that aren't here. It looked like you had a question. No? Okay. Rich? No, I hand wrote those. I have great calligraphy skills. I was a monk in a previous life. You know, I'll email out all of this stuff and some notes to you on Thursday. I've gone to working 4 days a week as I enter my decrepitude, and so I take Wednesdays off, and I'll get this out to you on Thursday. Donna. Keep kicking my backpack.
I think it was a year or so ago when we were still with the old model, or maybe it was when we were in the midst of COVID, but certainly before things have evolved to the current state. I believe some of the board members were going and meeting with congregations or pastors, and I'm just wondering if that's planned again, because with this new model, it might be very helpful to get the ear of the clergy person or the leader of, say, Rotary or whatever, to also share with them the model that we're moving into, to help get them on board.
Yeah, that was some of the point of the letter that I sent out, basically asking them, or that the board sent out, basically kind of pointing out a lot of the changes that we've had to make and asking them to pray for us as we try to wrestle with, okay, what is Family Promise going to look like in the future? Because it's not what it was originally where everybody signed on. We have to make some changes, and Family Promise National has 2 or 3 different options that different affiliates are using. And so we actually have a board retreat scheduled for November 5th to talk through some of these issues about how do we move forward and how do we keep our congregations involved, because they add such tremendous value. Just as an aside for myself, again, people, I've worked in the social services arena now 38 years, and yeah, really. And the thing that I see that low-income families really need is what we call social capital. They need relationships. They need, it's, when I say this to people all the time, when you're telling a young person about tips for getting a job, it's not what you know, it's who you know, right? And that's what we're pulling in. That to me, that is the tremendous value of the congregations. So as we move forward, the plan is to stay very involved in talking to the pastors, because that will change, kind of the role of the volunteers and all of that. So we're on that.
So the pastors have already received that letter?
It went last week. So I hope so. Oh. And my end of the letter was, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to call me. Be happy to talk to people about it.
So, I was also, I started out coordinator too back, when it was May 2016, right? One of the things as coordinators that I would say is, I always get up and talk to FUMC. I'm at Farmington United Methodist at least every 3 months. I'm on the board. because I feel like I need to educate them, right? So I would encourage, if you're not comfortable talking as a coordinator, getting up in front of the congregation, you could just reach out and ask. And I've come to St. John's once before. I'll come, or someone will come and talk about Family Promise, because I think what I've learned here tonight, like you said, Jay, we have to communicate more often, what's going on. And if that means coming out and having, more of a personal conversation, we'll be more than happy to do it. I think the other thing is, when I looked at this sheet, I always kept our interim pastor, and I always say, can we do boots on the ground, like Eileen said earlier. Everything you see on that sheet is really boots on the ground. And it's that personal time that you can spend helping someone. So I think this is a good place for you to, I would say, challenge your congregation or challenge folks, to really step in and try it. Like tonight, I signed up for hospitality, and I have no idea if our church is going to want to do it.
Good man.
Okay? Just like I told my congregation when I was talking, yeah, I'm on the vice president of Family Promise. I don't even know what that means. Okay? So it's really just stepping out and doing it, right? I mean, that's faith, right? You just step out and you do it. And that's my only word for advice, okay? Because I always said, if we lose the congregations, we really lost Family Promise, right? You see, the 5 people can't do it. So try it. Try something. See if it works for your congregation or works for your small group. What's the worst thing, right? Today in business, right? I work at Excelis, Fail fast. Okay, but thank you for coming, and thank you for your support. And, again, I'm really excited about our board, and also, if anything, just pray for us that we are guided in the right direction, that still makes this a great program. Because we got some decisions to make. Because, my vision is we need to start building something or something, right? Okay, it makes Eileen a little nervous, but, but sooner or later, we might have to get to that point, because the world is not building fast enough. But, yeah, that's all. Thank you.
And I would say, just kind of to jump on what Dave said, if when you're talking to your congregation about any of this stuff, and you would like one of us to come, we are always available to you to help talk through some of these issues, to kind of be the cheerleader, to help problem solve. We will help you in any way we can.
Well, thanks for coming out, everybody.
May I do something weird? It's not weird. We're at a 240-year-old church. Can we just end with a short moment of grace? Thank you, Most High, however and whoever you're conceived to be by all the hearts that are here, for guiding us to make a difference, even in the face of our differences. May you give us courage and conviction, strength and purpose, with our love and our gratitude. Amen. Thank you.
If you have empty parsonages that you're interested in letting us use for emergency shelter, or of some other property, please call us. We have a lot of families that need to get in.
Please grab a water and a snack on the way out. I don't want to take it home with me.
Yeah, I hear there's food downstairs. I don't know if it's still there or not.
Well, I smelled dinner on my way in, and I thought,
I know, I was like, dinner?
If there's anybody that didn't sign in, like to let us know.